What's the wildest cheating story you've witnessed or happened to you? My friend's mom was in a relationship with a guy for years and they ended up getting engaged and due to marry. The guy was a senior director of a company for which he traveled every week abroad for business. Eventually, the guy had a heart attack, and when my friend's mom turned up at the hospital, his wife and 2 kids were there also. Turned out he was already married with children and living a double life the whole time. When he went abroad for business, he was simply going back to his actual family. I honestly never understood how people can live those double lives. Hell, I'm exhausted just trying to keep up with my own life, yet alone juggle 2 more. Was in rehab. 2 people were there for sex addiction, one a minister, the other a Jewish housewife. They left rehab together early. Woman divorced her husband who sent her to rehab for sex addiction and married the guy she met in rehab. They are still married 10 years later and seem very happy. I knew a guy years ago that was a private investigator. Many times he was approached by a spouse who suspected their partner was cheating. He had a slam dunk strategy. He would suggest his clients sign up for a course, whether a hobby thing or educational. The key was that the class would happen for a period of weeks, all on the same day of the week, and all at the same time of day. Then, while his client was in class, he would follow the spouse, caught them every time. My ex-wife pretended to be admitted to a mental health ward for long-term treatment, while actually staying with her new man and cheating on me. This one is just next level. In a small town, the husband kept telling people he had an open marriage. Finally, someone asked his wife about it. She was unaware of this new arrangement. A family friend's husband was having an affair for 20+ years, and that woman knew the entire time about his family. He was at her ranch one time and was bucked off a horse and broke his back. The affair partner called his wife to tell her and acted like everything about this situation was normal, and the wife had no reason to act all upset at the affair. Some people really just have no shame. Guy lived and made a complete recovery. Left his mistress, and they stayed together since they were working on their relationship. He died a few years ago, and the wife finds out he never actually left his mistress, just lied. Had a co-worker who cheated on her live-in boyfriend. She would tell him she was going for a run, put on her shorts without underwear, and would duck her side piece in the apartment parking lot. So then she would come back inside sweaty 30 minutes later and needed to shower, and it all made sense to her boyfriend. He never questioned it. She was an awful human. I used to go to a comic shop, and the comic shop owner knew all of the gossip in the area. Nice dude. Remembers all of his regulars and asks about you if he hasn't seen you in a while to check in on people. Lot of people in the area grew up with his shop, so he's got stories. Anyways, he told us about this story from some years back about this regular, who disappeared for a few months. Comes back one day, and the shop owner asks him, "Hey, man, haven't seen you in a while? Kind of like, where have you been?" The regular was like, "Oh, I've been getting divorced. I had to move, it was a whole thing." So naturally the shop owner asks, "Why are you divorcing your wife?" The regular caught his wife cheating. He had picked up a second part-time job as pizza delivery man because he was trying to fund to take his wife on her dream vacation. All of the money he earned from that job was supposed to go into that vacation. He had been working this job for like 6 months. It was a whole secret. She didn't know he was doing that for her, because he was trying to surprise her. He was the pizza delivery man at the motel she was cheating at him with. The dude she was cheating on him with answered the door with her right next to him. He apparently didn't even go back to the pizza place. He quit on the spot, went home, packed his sheet and left town. Roommate was sleeping with his boss, who was married with a child. She would arrive at our house at 5:30 a.m., having told her husband she's off to gym. They would have an early morning shag, shower, get ready and go off to work together. They would also do it at work in the bathrooms. On weekends he would go do his food shopping and she would coincide her food shopping, so they would walk around the store together doing their shopping. He came home one night and sat my other roommate and I down and told us that within the next 6 months that she would be getting a divorce and they were going to have a kid together. Let's just say she's still married and he's got a new job. They were lawyers. So much for being fit and proper. Just got home from deployment. On an anniversary trip with my, now ex-wife, to Vegas. We go to a couple Cirque shows. Do some pie gal. Get a very fancy dinner. The whole anniversary spared no expense experience. She was passed out drunk and her phone was blowing the duck up with like 20 messages from an unsaved number. So I looked. They were very romantic and sexual messages and pictures. She had been texting him the whole night. Even while we were at dinner she told him she wished he was there instead of me. She had been messaging him for months. My whole deployment basically. Well, I dug deeper. Started reading other message chains. I found like 9 other affairs with both men and women. She was even a third in a throuple and caused the husband and wife to get divorced because she kept breaking the rules and ducking the husband without the wife there / behind her back. My dad cheated on my mom with a coworker. She suspected him of an affair but didn't know for sure until he didn't come home one night. I remember walking in the kitchen the next morning and asking my mom where he was. I was only 10 to 11 years old BTW. And she goes, "He didn't come home last night." So she called him at work and he said he slept at a friend's BC, he had too much to drink. My mom called the friend's wife. She confirmed my dad was not there at all. And that's all my mom needed to know. It destroyed our family. My mom packed his sheet and left it by the door. She got addicted to prescription pills afterwards and tried to heal herself. She only lived BC. I found her and called 911. After that she just left. Took off. Dumped me and my sister with my dad, who was ill-equipped to raise 2 almost teenagers. So he met this super bitch who was recently widowed. They got engaged. And before I knew it I was living with her and I had 6 stepbrothers and sisters. Things only got worse from there. I enlisted to get away from it all. Whole thing ducked me and my sister up pretty bad. Girls said she was approved for some class in another really far city after her grades in college were too good. The boyfriend paid all her travel expenses and gave her his credit card for this trip to this specific event. When she arrives on the another city she calls saying she won't come back and would live with this guy she met online and was chatting for months. Boyfriend went crazy to cancel the credit card he gave to her. Found there was never any class and she was almost expelled from the college because her grades were terrible. She just traveled to meet the other guy and still made BF pay all her expenses. This happened about 15 years ago. I lost contact with her. But I remember she married the other guy. This is my wild story, my ex-husband, John, and I had been together for a total of 14 years. Married for about a year and a half. We are only 32 and 33 years old. Last August, 2022. My dad was dying and John wasn't there for me. In fact, he said that I was making him an emotional punching bag when I dared express disdain for him spending the entire day with friends. My dad died 3 days later. And every day after that, John showed me that he wasn't a supportive husband. We agreed to separate at the beginning of this year, and I moved into my best friend's condo. About 2 months later, John texted me that one of our best friends, Alexa, she was a bridesmaid in our wedding, had to be involuntarily admitted to the hospital, and the story was a whole mess. My best friends and I met with John a week or so later so that he could tell us the story. He told us that she had left suicide notes for her mom, her husband Ryan, and also John. And it turned out that she was in love with John and couldn't be with him. So she wanted to die. John told a long story of how he helped find her and got her involuntarily admitted, painting himself as a hero. A month later, I decided that Alexa and I could still be friends despite her being in love with my ex. Someone I was no longer in love with. I invited her out for sushi and she agreed. At first, things were normal. She said that she was with Ryan and things were fine. I finally told her I knew about the hospitalization and that she was in love with John. She got angry and told me the real story. She and John had started sleeping together a month-ish after our wedding in September 2021. She went on for a while about the emotional connection. Then she told me how they stopped for a bit and started again in fall of 2022. She said that they didn't use condoms and she got pregnant. She told Ryan that they were pregnant. And together, they planned to announce to their families on Christmas about the baby. Sadly, John didn't want the baby. Told her that he didn't care about her, etc., etc. So she decided to have an abortion. She showed Ryan a toilet full of blood and said, deadpan, that she had a miscarriage. Her mental health declined from there, and she became suicidal in January of this year. Over John and everything. Ryan had no clue until the day of her suicide attempt. I was livid after hearing the whole story. In April/May of this year, John and I got divorced. And I got diagnosed with cancer. I'm currently going through chemo and I am writing from the hospital bed as I'm being admitted for an infection and my white blood cell counts are too low to leave. This past year has been the worst. High school sweetheart, and I went off to college. Different schools. While I was visiting, I was walking around the house to the front door. Window was open and I overhear her talking to another high school guy friend of mine that is in college with her about how she doesn't know how to tell me she cheated. He caught her with a friend of his and was forcing her to fess up before he did. So that broke us up, needless to say. She begged me to forgive her. About 3 months later I relented and had her visit me at my college. We went out that night. Food, drinks, and finally a house party. Before we were about to leave, I went up to a friend's room to grab a bag of cannabis from him. 15 minutes later I come down, go out to the porch, look to the left, and there she is making out with some random guy we hadn't even met before. She literally met him 2 minutes after I went upstairs. She cried all night. I was crying laughing that she had so little self-control. I ended up having her sleep on the couch, and she went home before I woke up. Haven't spoken since. That was about 20 years ago. This happened in my village about 35 years ago. And it involved the best of friends who were a bit crazy. When one of the friends was going for the night shift at the local factory, the other would visit his wife. When the cheated husband suspected his wife of infidelity, he lied that he was going to the night shift, both his friend and his wife, to see what will happen. Of course, he caught his wife and the friend in the act. When the husband burst in, his friend leaped through the closed window completely naked, leaving behind his clothes and dirty underwear. The husband took those soiled underwear and put them in his pocket, and he kicked his wife out of the house. The next day, he went all around the village showing the underwear and telling everyone that his wife was unfaithful with a sh**her. As the story spread throughout the village, it eventually reached the lover's family, who happened to be wealthy. His father and uncle went to the cheated husband and asked him to stop spreading the story. He agreed, but on the condition that they buy the underwear for a sum equivalent to about 1,000 euros in today's money. The story's epilogue is that the betrayed husband took his wife back, and they continue to live together to this day. They even have grandchildren. However, the friends never reconciled. A friend of a friend in the military was deployed to Afghanistan and came back with some injuries and gnarly PTSD, for which he applied for a handsome Veterans Affairs claim. A few months after he got back, he found out his longtime partner was cheating on him the whole time he was gone with a friend of his, who she then left him for months after his return. He separated from her and eventually healed himself due to everything. She got all his money because he didn't adjust his benefits before he died, with which she erected this awful-looking estate on the other end of town. I have to pass by this house every so often, and it hurts so much every time. I was deployed with 2 guys. One was our medic, the other a mortarman. Both were married and the medic had some kids. He was dad to at least one of his own, plus he had adopted his step-kids. We got back from deployment and find out the entire unit is moving to Germany. The medic and his wife hosted a party at their house before everyone left. During said party, the mortarman and the medic's wife teamed up for beer pong. They were getting a little too close to the point a bunch of us were trying to wrap the party up before anything got out of control. The medic's wife was originally from Germany. She decided to get a head start on getting their house and family all set, moving over about a month before her husband, the mortarman, now in the middle of a divorce, was on the torch party for our battalion. He also got there early. The medic arrives later than expected due to a professional development school he had to attend. His house and family are set. But now his wife is pregnant. It's obvious to everyone that it's not his. He goes along with it for a while until the mortarman got drunk and called him. The mortarman admitted to ducking the medic's wife from pretty much the first day he got to Germany. He wanted to raise his kid. The medic got a divorce, fought for custody of his kid and adopted kids and lost. About 7 years ago, I talked to him. The mortarman and the medic's ex got married, lasted about 6 months, and got divorced. The mortarman disappeared from her life, and she had no real help with anything. I worked at a ski resort and was riding the chairlift with a friend. Talking about a mutual friend, Ray, I mentioned how much I like our Ray's girlfriend. Her name was Stacy. My friend says, "No, Ray's girlfriend is Monica." We bicker for a minute before we have a terrible realization. I couldn't in good conscience keep this information secret from Stacy, who was expecting to be engaged soon and lived with Ray. She ran into Monica at a bar and confronted Monica, who reportedly said, "I've been with Ray for longer and known about you the whole time." Stacy tried to gouge Monica's eyes and was carried out of the bar. Ray was found to have a history of this behavior, even having a secret child in another state that he refused to pay support for. I quit speaking with him, and sometimes wonder what happened to him. Both ladies are married to good men and are now happy. So there's that. Names changed for obvious reasons. This is a friend's family. 2 sisters, one is my friend's mom, began cheating with the sister's husband. The sister found out and ducked the other husband, her brother-in-law, out of spite. Both couples got divorced and both sisters fell in love with and married the other spouse. My friend's cousins became her step-siblings. All I ever heard is that around the holidays when people are drinking, old feelings come up and fights happen. I do not want to be around that awkward Thanksgiving table. I also have my own story. I just graduated high school and left for the army, and my GF went to college. Between basic training and AIT, I was gone for just shy of a year. The entire time I was sending my GF money to be able to go out and enjoy herself. Her parents were really poor and she didn't have much income. Every weekend she would go out and party with her friends as most college kids would do. This went on for a year after I got back. On the weekends she'd spend the night Friday, all day Saturday, and then go out Saturday night and stay with her friend. I drove her to her friend's house multiple times and even buy them bottles of alcohol. Her friend would come out of the house, say hi to me, then I'd drive off. Turns out the house I was taking her to was a guy she'd be ducking for the last year I was in training. They both used me and my money to party their asses off and duck each other for the last year. And her friend was actually the dude's sister and encouraged her to cheat on me. So basically I gave her $8,000 in 11 months while she used my money, my gas, and my car to go duck another dude, and in some twisted sick way she got joy out of using me to literally drive her to his house and use my money. She tried crawling back a few months later after the dude cheated on her. I laughed and told her to go duck herself. Edit, autocorrect. One day I came home to find my dad's mail account on my computer. My curiosity got the best of me and I opened it. And learned that my dad was interested in his young coworker and shared it with a friend. While he was living with my, now former, lovely, cute, funny, and awesome stepmom, my dad accused me of connecting into his mail on my own. My mom blamed my dad for using my computer while I was away. And I swore to myself to never consider another of his lover as my real stepmom. And I still don't know to this day how his mail was open on my computer when he had one. Friend was married for about 5 years. Together for 13, and they had a baby. They had serious issues, but what bothered the wife most was lack of sex. He suggested an open relationship, which she declined until one day when she declared she wanted to be polyamorous. He agreed and she instantly dated a friend of them. The next day, they did the whole, "We're poly. That's not weird and we're all happy and stable. Except our relationship" thing in their friend circle. Fast forward 4 months, she dumps her husband and kid, manipulates the new guy to let her move in immediately, makes him pay for all her sheet. Turns out she had planned to leave her husband for a while but wanted to have a new guy, safe, first. So he told him they had already broken up while she told her husband they were poly in case things with her BF don't work out. They got divorced 18 months later. Any guy proposed to her not long after. They're getting married next year and the new guy bought her a house while she didn't even pay child support for her toddler. Had a child right out of high school. Got married. After some time. My wife tells me that she needs a few days away to unwind. She wanted to go spend some time with a female friend in Florida. We get her a plane ticket and I drop her off at the airport. I'm home working and taking care of our child while she's gone. So, she comes home and everything seems normal. One night we start fooling around in the kitchen and she seems really excited. I ask what got into her, and she admits that she and her friend had messed around. Her friend had gone down on her. Kinda blindsided me. She never talked about being with another woman. She seemed to think that I would be okay with it. Over the next few weeks more and more details came out and it turns out that it happened more than once while she was there. She says that there are photos of the two of them if I want to see them. I ask who took the photos. The girl's boyfriend did. I start getting the feeling that he was more involved than she's letting on. The whole thing led to a loss of trust and fighting between us. I left about a year later when I found out that she was talking to some guy online. I found out later that he was 17 and she was 23 when they started talking. The guy moved in with her after I moved out. They break up after 6 months or so. While we were in the middle of divorce proceedings, took a while because she kept taking off to visit friends out of state that she met online, and I find out that she had another threesome with a couple that we both know. My ex slept with his ex-GF the day I birthed our son. This is just one of the many examples after you try to make things right after you find out your best friend had been sleeping with him for your entire pregnancy with your second child together. I thought I was in a low-key relationship with a guy I worked with, until he came to work one day, handing out invitations to his wedding, which was occurring because he had also knocked up his ex-girlfriend. I didn't receive one. The cherry on the cake was after the wedding, when another coworker told me the hilarity that ensued about the embarrassment this guy went through, having to explain the above situation to the coworker he was dating. And he wasn't speaking about me, but of yet another girl who also worked with all of us. My ex-fiancée went to a New Year's party while I was napping. She partnered up with the best friend of her best friend's husband playing cornhole, and he proceeded to grab her as all night. When I got to the party, no one said anything to me, but there was a girl there that had an odd look on her face when my ex introduced me as her fiancé. 2 days later I went on a fishing trip and she went to his house and ducked him. When I got back we both came down with COVID. On the 3rd day of quarantining, her best friend called her and told her she had to tell me or she was going to send me an anonymous letter telling me. So she told me. The same best friend that encouraged the as grabbing at the party. The same best friend that went drinking and allowed my ex to drive drunk to duck her husband's sober best friend. The same trashy ex I never liked and tried to get my ex away from. After the cheating, I stupidly tried to make it work. I gave her an ultimatum. Either cut ties with the best friend or I'm gone. She refused. Our couple's therapist said she shouldn't have to. We only lasted like 2 more months when a guy she ducked while we were split up a few years earlier texted her while he was conveniently at a bar across the street from us. After all this, she got on FB and said, "I never cheated on him, you can literally ask my best friend." And that piece of trash commented agreeing. Childhood friend met and married a wonderful lady with kids. Moved to her ranch and immediately had a kid of their own. Got a great job up the road and eventually they offered to pay for him to finish his degree at the college one town over. He attends classes twice a week. 2 years go by and work calls to check on him, but she says he already got home and left for class. They don't know anything about a class. Just that he'd been sick at work and didn't come back after lunch. Turns out he'd been going to a professor's office 2 nights a week for an affair and then, when confronted, left both of them behind to go to France to stay with a girl he met there during a trip in high school. Dated a woman for close to a year who I thought was divorced with a couple of kids. Kids lived out of state with their dad. I later found out she was only separated from him, but had been for a couple of years prior to she and I beginning our thing. Okay. I guess. I'm already in the sheet now. Johnny. Long story short, I found out when she would go and visit the kids that she and the ex were sleeping together. I only found this out after she told a mutual friend of ours that she was pregnant, and I have a vasectomy. We broke up right then. She continued to call and text and email me for more than a year after. She begged for her and I to go on an annual escape together every year after she had the kid and got back together with him. She said she wanted at least 1 week a year to feel love and have her love in her life. She told me over and over again she knew she had messed up big time. Talk about sad and toxic behavior. Saw pics of the kid. Vasectomy definitely did not let me down. This all was so ducking messed up. The scene, an occasionally roughhouse rockabilly bar. The players, a huge bouncer with a short pompadour. A bartender, fiancé of the bouncer. Gorgeous, but clearly no kind of pushover. Bouncer gets a tattoo of the bartender's name over his heart. Bouncer gives bartender a pistol for her birthday. Bouncer cheats on bartender. Bartender finds out. Comes to his apartment. Shouting match devolves into bartender shooting bouncer. Bouncer lives because he is a human grizzly bear. Refuses to cooperate with the prosecution. Charges dropped. I go to the bar. I buy a drink from the bartender. I wind up by the door, chatting with the bouncer. He tells me the story. I tell him that's crazy. He says yeah, but he's sticking around. Because it has to be meant to be. I ask why. He unbuttons his shirt and shows me his scar. It looked like a period right after where her name was tattooed on his chest. I was a florist. A guy came in and ordered flowers for 2 different women. His girlfriend and his wife. He puts both orders on the same credit card. One he shares with his wife. Everyone in the shop volunteered to deliver them to see what these women looked like. Later that day, the wife calls to ask who the second order was sent to. Since her name is on the card, we feel no obligation to secrecy, so we told her. Florists in general are pretty good at keeping secrets, but in this case she paid for the flowers. I've also disclosed anonymous sources if a woman has received flowers from an anonymous source. I don't want to be involved in a stalking scenario. I didn't know these people all that well. They were college friends of one of my high school friends, so I partied with them a handful of times when visiting. Anyway, this guy and girl met freshman year in college, around when they became friends with my friend, and fell in love. They dated all throughout college, and around the time of graduation they got engaged. Again, I only hung out with the guy a few times, but he seemed like a genuinely good dude, and he was in love with this girl. The girl was super nice too and also seemed super in love. They were the power couple in my buddy's friend group. They graduate. They move in together. And they start planning their wedding. A couple months before the big day. She plans to go home for a while. She was from somewhere in Eastern Europe, genuinely forget where specifically, and her culture had a custom where a bride spends about a month with her family before the wedding. So she left to fly back home while her fiancé stayed in America. He had already started his first professional job and she had it planned out where she would begin after her wedding. So she's away in her home country. He's back in America doing his part for finishing touches on wedding planning. All while working and settling into the home he will share with his wife when she returns. After the first few weeks of constant communication, she goes dark. He doesn't hear from her for days. And then a week goes by. There wasn't as much social media back then, and the international situation made it really difficult for him to get in contact with her if she wasn't answering her cell. Then, the day before she was supposed to fly back, he gets a goddamn letter in the mail from her. It's a note telling him that she met someone while out in her home country and fell in love with him. She's staying with her family and not coming back to America. She gives him permission to sell all of her stuff. And that was that. He never saw her again. This is my trademark story. My ex-wife was friends with a bunch of models. But this particular girl, Libby, was unbelievably good looking. The kind of girl where she would dress down like ball cap and no makeup ever and try to hide her face in public. This is relevant because I fully now understand why you rarely see drop-dead gorgeous women in public. Women get catcalled and sexually harassed continuously. But being young and pretty, and guys would pull over on the side of the road and try to follow her into stores to talk to her. So she is engaged to a guy called Chuck. And Chuck is a nice guy who is working on his doctorate in engineering. And he had previously been a model himself. Great-looking guy with chiseled jaw, perfect teeth, muscles, blonde hair, and sky blue eyes. Women would chase Chuck down to talk to him. We went to a bar one time and I saw what the other half was like. He had 10 girls all trying to buy him drinks. It was unreal. The affair, they do a bachelor/bachelorette weekend before their wedding. For Chuck's, we all get together and do a family-friendly barbecue. Since a lot of the guys are taking care of the kids while the girls go to the bachelorette weekend. Then at night we do a smash tournament. And the next day we were doing a big family beach party. The women's group was going to rent a lake house and a boat and spend the weekend drinking and boating. They come back like nothing happened and we all go on about our lives. The wedding was a couple weeks later. And the wedding happens. Then the honeymoon. Then about 6 weeks later, Libby announces she's pregnant. Then Chuck moves out. Then the truth comes out. At the bachelorette party, Libby and several other single, engaged, and married women all met a frat that was having a big party in a nearby cabin. Libby wasn't the only one that got pregnant there. We'd find out later. Basically, all the women decided to keep this secret until one girl, Morgan, decided to spill the beans to Chuck and some of the other guys that the girls had basically decided to take Molly, drink, and get dick down. But seeing as how it was the last big dig she'd ever get, Libby let any guy who wanted take a turn with her. 10 months later, Libby gives birth to a mixed-race baby and her parents disown her, and a ton of people in that friend group are broken up, divorcing, or working through it. 5 years later I kept up with Chuck because he and I had overlapping work. So I'd see him around pretty often. Sometime after I had split with my ex-wife, he and caught up and he said he was getting remarried. I congratulated him and asked who he was marrying. He says, Libby. Basically, he said that in spite of everything, he dated a bunch of women, but Libby was the only one he really clicked with. It blows my mind because he has women all day long begging to get with him, and he's pining after a woman who I wouldn't trust with a sack of flour. Last I knew, they were happily living together, and his son is now a teenager. My boyfriend and I had moved into an apartment together in April. One of our mutual friends from middle school moved into the same building, and it was all fine and fun. In July, however, he was hanging out with our mutual friend and one of her girlfriends. They were drinking and did some ketamine. Mutual friend left to her boyfriends and trusted them to both leave her apartment after she was gone. That didn't happen. He stayed and slept with her on our friend's floor and walked down these stairs and crawled right into bed with me after. Fast forward to September. I get a call from our mutual friend and she's hanging out with said girl. She tells her they have sex and she calls immediately to tell me. I'm hurt and confront him about it, and of course getting the crying and screaming that it was all a mistake, how he was so ducked up it didn't mean anything, blah blah blah. That dies down and the mutual friend and her friend comes back to the building. I go outside to talk to them, and I'm just sitting there listening to some girl tell me how my boyfriend said we were in an open relationship and that it was okay that they have sex because of it. He also didn't want to use a condom when she brought it up. Then hit her up a month later to do it again while still being with me and lying to me about it. Really weird and ducked up experience. I had a girlfriend who had a really bad reputation. But I was dumb and fell for her. One day we had no plans to see each other. But I went to her house to pick me Xbox controller. I saw her in her "it's just a friend" truck and she tried to hide. We broke up and she ended marrying that guy. Fast forward couple years. Her husband caught her in bed with his best fiend. How you get M is how you lose M. I never thought I would share this story with the entire internet. But it's 6 years and 2 boyfriends later. I went through therapy. Moved on. I'm happy in a new relationship that I hope will be my last one. So I might as well tell you. I was in a dying relationship. Well past the point of recovery. Which should have been obvious to me at that time. But wasn't. Finally. One night my now ex-boyfriend, let's call him John, decided it was time to make the move and told me he was breaking up with me. His words were calculated. His manner was cold and his face was completely emotionless. We decided I would be the one to move out. But it took me a while to pick up the pieces of whatever was left of my life and arrange an accommodation. So I was still staying at our place for a few weeks. Sleeping in a separate bed. One day, when I was taking a long hot shower, a handwritten text appeared on the large mirror in the bathroom as the steam condensate. Happy anniversary, John. I sent him a photo of the writing and didn't speak to him till the day I moved out. I then also found a used condom in the lounge when packing my things. We were together for 10 years. Edit grammar. The uncle of a friend of ours cheated with the babysitter. Got her pregnant. Got a divorce. And then married the babysitter. Then he cheated with the babysitter. Got her pregnant. Got a divorce. And then married the babysitter. Then he cheated with the babysitter. Got her pregnant. Got a divorce. And then married the babysitter. I guess I can understand how the first wife gets fooled here and maybe even the second. But that third wife should be sensing a pattern. It has been many years since we last heard about this uncle. But I have to assume it is just babysitters the whole way down. Not really wild but still annoying. Had an ex back in my teenage years who cheated on me at a party. She didn't tell me. The person she cheated on me with informed me about it. Apparently they had had a couple of drinks and were dared to make out in the closet. Well, they went one step further. Things got heated. They went all the way. Not sure if they did it in the closet or went and found a room. The kicker, when I confronted her about it, she actually believed I would be okay with her cheating since the person she cheated on me with was another girl. Turned out that she actually gone all the way again that night with 2 guys. Something which she only confessed to after we had broken up. She cheated on me with 3 people in one night. Still not sure how I feel about that, and it's been 15+ years.